All right, y'all. So I came across this video from the Chris Williamson podcast. He sat down with Tulsi Gabbard. I'm not exactly sure when this was filmed. It was posted 2 months ago. I'm not 100% sure when it was actually recorded, though, but it was posted 2 months ago. And they're having a very interesting conversation. I'm about halfway through, but I stopped because I wanted to watch it and react to it with y'all. And they're talking about God and specifically the left and why it seems like the left fears religious people and why they've become increasingly anti-God. Now, Tulsi, if you don't remember, she used to be a Democrat, so she's familiar with the party. So I think she has a very interesting perspective on this whole topic. And also, Tulsi Gabbard was just named as the director of national intelligence, which is a huge role. She's going to be overseeing the CIA, the FBI, the NSA. Now, of course, this has to be confirmed by the Senate, but this is who Trump wants. This is who Trump trusts. And this has garnered quite a bit of scrutiny from the media. Specifically, the media on the left has been very critical of this. And to be quite honest, the media has been critical of all Trump's selections. And I was actually having dinner last night and I was just like flipping through the channels. I was looking for like a basketball game or a football game. And I saw CNN was on, which I haven't watched CNN on live TV for probably about 8 years, like seriously. But they were talking about Trump's selection so far, and they were specifically talking about how all of them are white, except for like Marco Rubio, I guess, if you want to add Marco Rubio. But ain't no black people. And that's what they were talking about. And they were debating, going back and forth. Very interesting discussion, which I would love to join, and I'm going to join and talk about that at some point. Not today, maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day. But that's a very interesting conversation that I want to get into. But first things first, Tulsi Gabbard, why the left fears religious people. Let's get into it.
Interesting angle, I think, to the political discourse at the moment is the strained relationship that people on the left have with God and faith, and this almost antagonistic relationship with religion and belief, but certain religions. What do you make of that? How do you sort of see?
I have a whole chapter in my book on this exactly, and in that, you know, I talk about how and refer to once again the history of the Democratic Party and how it really has grown as of late, where it was once a party that there was no aversion to mention of God. And this was the party that I joined. It was a more inclusive party. It welcomed people from all different religious backgrounds and faiths and different beliefs. To now fast forward to, and it was something that happened over time. I mean, Jimmy Carter was an evangelical Christian, and even when he was elected president, there were some people around him who were just like, oh, I don't know if this is like too much. And this is something that has increased over time to where in the last Democratic convention that was held, obviously it was held virtually during the whole COVID thing, but even saying the Pledge of Allegiance, they made a big show of eliminating, saying one nation, awkward silence, refused to say under God.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Even as they said the Pledge of Allegiance.
I didn't know that either. Which is just, that says pretty much everything that you need to know. You can't even say under God. There's a lot of spirits involved. And ultimately, these demonic spirits, they know that they're under God. They know that God is sovereign, that God is in control. And these spirits, they know what they're ultimately going to experience, which is eternity in hell. And that's why they're so disobedient, because they hate it. They hate it so much, and they oppose it so much that they oppose the people of God. And the Democratic Party, they started to take more and more values that were in direct opposition to God. And that's why you see this increasing gap, because I used to be a Democrat when I was like 18, and even, you know, more recently, it wasn't really until, I can't really pinpoint when the shift happened, but it seemed like I was staying in one place And the Democrats just kept going further and further and further to the left, and more outrageous and more loony and more demonic. And it's like, dog, I can't stand for this. I think it was when I became a Christian, which I can't remember exactly when that was. I was working at Wells Fargo. This was some years ago. I can't remember exactly when it was, but I think that's when I really started to reevaluate myself and my belief systems and what I had been subscribing to up until that point. And the Democratic Party just didn't make sense for me anymore. And, you know, it wasn't like an immediate switch, though. It wasn't an immediate switch, because I had a lot of time where I'm just like, bro, I don't subscribe to any of it. And I really, honestly, I don't like to really even play the political games, but it's very clear which party has a reverence for God and which one doesn't. And I'm not saying everybody on the right is perfect, but if you were to choose one, definitely the right would be the one to choose if you're a person of faith who has Christian values. That's just my opinion, but let's continue. But that's crazy. I'm going to look up that clip after this is done. I'm going to see if I can find that clip of them refusing to say under God during the DNC in 2020.
Over Zoom. So, you know, seeing how today's Democratic Party is, you know, they are targeting Catholics and Christians primarily, trying to eliminate like God, really any mention of God from every facet of public life. You had Kamala Harris, when she was a senator on the Judiciary Committee, going after and attacking and ultimately opposing a nominee for a judgeship, specifically because he was an observant and devout Catholic and a member of the Knights of Columbus.
What is that?
The Knights of Columbus.
What is
It is an all-male organization. I don't think it's like, it's not governed. I don't know if it's governed by the Catholic Church, but it is a Catholic organization.
Knights of Columbus.
And
that sounds cool.
it does sound cool.
Way cooler than me and my friends.
But it's a community. It's a community like service-oriented organization. They go and do good things in the community essentially. But it is centered around a very a Catholic system.
To give it a less
of beliefs.
intimidating name, it sounds Masonic and dangerous and, you know, spooky.
They did the same thing with Amy Coney Barrett, who's now in the Supreme Court, with now since passed away, but Senator Dianne Feinstein warned against her when she went for confirmation before the same Judiciary Committee, saying, you know, I'm concerned the dogma lives loudly within you. All of these things going against our Constitution, which says there shall be no religious test to serve in any public office, period. And it unfortunately, it goes against kind of the whole concept of freedom of religion, where you can have your beliefs, you can be atheist, agnostic, Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, whatever, you know, your choice is. That is literally the concept of freedom. Is not that you're not allowed to practice your religion in public and it's got to be just a private thing. You can do what you want.
Where's this come from? Is this a contamination zone from trying to maybe upend some of the history of the United States? Is it that, you know, the sort of love of country and patriotism is right-coded, and so is maybe religious participation right-coded? And if we're not that, then it means that we're the... I don't understand, given that there's so many Americans who are religious, Christian, it just seems like you're shooting yourself in the foot and the face. Why would you do that?
A lot of the things that they're pushing fall into that category because they don't make sense, and they're so insanely radical that that there are very negative consequences to those policies, just at a basic human level. We talked about some of them already. You know, ultimately at its heart, and again, I don't find any logic or rationale to the actual reasonings that they're giving, but at its heart, when you have a party that is controlled by people who don't believe in objective truth, that there are, for example, that there are biological differences between men and women, that they want to be the authority that tells us what is true and what is not true. They want to be the authority that tells us what is acceptable information, what is not, you know, misinformation, disinformation, hate speech.
They want to be God. That's why they don't even want to mention God. They want to be God. They want to tell us what the truth is, as opposed to subscribing to the truth that has already been laid out for us in the scriptures. They want to rewrite it. That's the spirits at work, the demonic spirits at work, that don't want to submit under God. But the thing about it is, these demonic spirits, they know what's up. They know that God is on top. They know that they're going to be spending eternity in hell. They know what's up. I think that's why they're so rebellious, because they hate God so much. So obviously, if they hate God so much, they're going to hate the people of God. They're going to hate the people that subscribe to the belief system, that have faith in Jesus Christ. That's obvious. And I think that was clear during the election. And obviously, this was the most spiritual election that I've ever witnessed personally at 30 years old. It's very clear at the result that people aren't going for that no more. Like we know the truth. We know the truth. And even if you're not a Christian, even if you don't believe in the Bible, don't sit here and tell me that you can't recognize the truth at the most basic level, male and female. You don't sit here and tell me that you don't understand what a woman is. What are these conversations that we're even having? Why are we even doing this? There's so many bigger things to be concerned about. People literally don't know how they're going to put gas in their car tomorrow to go to work, to make a living, to feed their family. And we're talking about what is a woman. It doesn't make sense. It's insane. And that's why they lost. Common sense went completely out the window. But let me stop talking, because she's explaining this much better than I could ever imagine.
Violent speech, acceptable speech, whatever the case may be, they see themselves as that authority, and they recognize that those who believe in a higher power, whatever that may be, are not going to buy into them being that higher power or that authority, and the ultimate, influencer that people should be concerned with. And so at its core, that is where this is coming from. It comes back to power, and them seeing those who believe in God or who are following their particular spiritual path or faith as not being willing to bend the knee to the power of the Democrat elite and the positions that they hold in our government.
So here's the thing, just before he says something. Here's the thing. They being the Democrats, they being the left, they want to have the ultimate authority. They want that power to influence people and influence what truth is, and get people to redefine what truth is. They want that influence. But the thing about it is, God's character never changes. It's the same. It was the same in the Old Testament. It's the same today. It will be the same for all of eternity. His character never changes. People are the complete opposite. People change by the day, sometimes by the hour. And depending on who you're dealing with, you might get them crazy people who be changing by the literal minute or second. So you want me to subscribe to you as being the ultimate influence, the ultimate authority, when you're constantly changing and flipping and indecisive. So this truth that you're giving us today inevitably is going to change. It's going to evolve into something that is most likely going to look a lot different than what you're pushing on us today. And that's why it seems like things keep progressing. Like the level of crazy just is unlimited, it seems. It's like we started off with, love is love. And then it's like, okay, now we want to redefine marriage, and it's okay. Now we want to redefine what biological sex is, and we want to redefine gender, and now we want to go into the girls' locker room, even though, we're clearly not. But it's like, where is this going? And why is it going there? That's what I want to know.
But there's a story about William Tyndale, who was a scholar and linguist. He was the first person to translate the Bible into common English from the original Hebrew and Greek. And what you had when you went to Mass was a conduit between you and the priest. So if you, me and you are common peasants, and we go on Sunday to church service, our relationship with God is mediated through the priest. And because the Bible is not written in the common language, we have to go. So they've kind of centralized power in this one forcing point in the middle, which is the one person that can actually read it. And that William Tyndale was persecuted for doing that, because then the relationship had become completely decentralized.
Right.
It was totally accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel if what you're saying is right, it doesn't feel like that's too dissimilar. That, if you are able to get your meaning and your trust from somebody
through a direct personal relationship with God
that
versus
is not daddy government,
Yeah.
then maybe you don't need us so much. And it's so, like, if this stuff's true, and I'm too green behind the ears in this country to actually be able to sort of contextualize much of it, it's so unsophisticated and infantile. Like, it's so like unimpressive that, the people that run the forefront of culture, the country that's behind the economic engine and all the rest of this stuff, America coughs, everyone else catches a cold, all of this, that these people are like actually really unsophisticated and stupid. And they don't understand second or third order consequences. They don't.
Or do they? They're not even trying.
How?
Which makes it even worse, in my view.
Right.
If you've got someone who's
the respect to be
exactly to like eat, like just try, do the work, try to figure this out. And look, we're all human. You might make a mistake. You might make a wrong decision. Got it. But these are people who aren't even. They don't care enough. And this is the most disheartening and the most dangerous part. They don't even care enough to make that effort.
In other news, this episode is brought to you by Maui Nui Venison. You just heard our resident Hawaiian princess, Tulsi, talking about her home state of
Okay. As I said, it's all spiritual. It's all spiritual. And ultimately, you shouldn't put your complete faith or trust in either side, because these are man-made institutions, and they will ultimately come to an end at some point. Now, the Bible tells us to essentially respect our governing authorities. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, but that doesn't mean you compromise the truth. And that is the exception. The Bible says, be respectful to our governing authorities, but if we're put into a situation by our government where it's the government or God, then go ahead and be disobedient towards your government, because you're not going to choose the government over God, because one is going to come to an end at some point and the other is an eternal kingdom. So, as I said, I think it's no secret why the left lost. And I've said this before, I'm very curious to see where they go from here in terms of the next election. What does it look like in terms of their candidate? I don't know who's going to emerge. It almost seems like it's probably going to be Newsom, because what it also seems like from a California standpoint, I've heard some speculation that Kamala is going to run for governor of California, which I think she'd actually have a much better shot of winning that, because Gavin Newsom has reached his term limit in California. Thank goodness. But I think the next step for him would be to push for the presidency. And, with Trump on his way out, being that this is his second term, I'm also curious to see what happens from a Republican standpoint, where they go. And I think a lot of it is going to be determined based on the success or lack thereof of Trump's second term. I think that's going to have a lot to do with how the American people vote. Because if things are going well, which I anticipate that they will, if things are going well, I can't see the people putting an interruption to that like they did with putting Biden in office. I think they've learned from that mistake. I think we've all learned from that mistake. At any rate, this is future talk. So maybe I can come back to this video in 4 years, once, Gavin or whoever's running, and see if I was right or wrong. But Let me know what y'all think. This is an interesting video. Get in my comments, like this video. I'm out, y'all.